I am here with Briana Gervat. I said that right, right? You just told me it. I just want to make sure I
It's
didn't.
fine, it's fine. It sounds more French when you say it like that.
And I'm here with you today because I was on a service that we both use called Podmatch, and I found your story very interesting. Could you talk a little bit more, like a brief synopsis of what you did?
Yes, absolutely. So in 2022, just as the world was starting to open up after COVID, I decided to walk the length of the Western Front of World War One, the Great War notoriety. So it's a 1,000 kilometer path or 500-mile trail that goes from the Franco-Prussian border to the North Sea. And I did it all by myself. And I walked through like the major battlefields of World War One, and just really commemorated the Great War and the loss that happened there. And now I've since wrote a book about it.
So when I think of this story, it kind of reminds me of I don't know if you've heard of Wild, that book.
Yes, people do say that, and, I would like to depart from that comparison, very much so. I, would like to think that I have it was met with a tremendous amount of success, but it was rooted more in, and not that my book isn't rooted in a personal story, but my book is more rooted in history as well, and, on the collective understanding of the world.
Before you decided to go on this, so like, I know you mentioned like this happened basically like right as COVID was kind of like letting up. What was your
Mhm.
experience like? What was going through your life prior to COVID, and then how did like what happened like prior and then like during COVID to make you kind of want to go on this journey?
That's an awesome, awesome question. So, like 3 years before COVID, I had gone on a major pilgrimage from India all the way to Spain. And I've gone through the Middle East and Turkey and the Balkans. And then I did a 500-mile walk across the north of Spain. And so I was like, this is good. I have momentum and everything else like that. The next year, I took a road trip and visited all of the civil rights sites throughout the American South. Like going to, where in Memphis where Martin Luther King was shot, and going to parts of Mississippi and Selma and and Montgomery, Alabama, and that was, really exciting. And then I took the next year to write a book about it. And then I was like really excited because once I finished the book, I'm like, I get to go travel again. I get to go see the world again. And then the world just shut down. And so, I just felt like COVID was a hiccup in so many ways for us, socially, economically, culturally, all the things, and also, health wise. And once the world started opening up, I was like, okay, I'm ready to get back out there again.
Now, I that was a lot of traveling you did. When did your kind of interest in like going on all these places kind of start? Was it just kind of due to like the history that you mentioned before? Like, of course, you mentioned you went to Memphis, the place where Dr. King was shot. Like, were you more interested in like you were interested in the history, and then of course you wanted to see the places like up close?
Yeah, I think that it was a mix of the two. It was like if I was like going to take this, so I'm an art historian. So my thing is that if I'm going to study history, there's no point in just keeping a book open and thinking that that's I know it now, that I understand it. So the opportunities to go to these places and to see what happened and how it might have happened, even like Civil War battlefields and other, major moments in history, that it just I feel like it makes it a little bit more tangible and a little bit more like less distant in the past, or a little bit more where you can connect with it in a way that you can't by just watching documentaries or reading books or anything. So it just gives me a little bit more understanding of the history that takes place.
Outside of the Western Front, which I want to talk about a bit more, what would you say is probably the most memorable place or journey you've been on, basically, and whatever landmark it may be and why?
So I would say Rwanda. So I went to graduate school and I studied art history. And Like, I was looking at things and I wanted to do, like, the marriage between science and art, talk about physics, talk about the relationship between the 2, and then I started seeing all these tragic photos, like war photography, so I'm fascinated by war. I It still blows my mind that we're able to descend into such madness, that we just can't stop ourselves from doing it. And so I saw these war photographs and stuff, and I was drawn to the Rwandan genocide because I was 14 when it happened, and I just remember, that was the same summer that O.J. Simpson, was chased down the street for murdering his wife. And so it was just interesting to be there. So then after I wrote my thesis on the importance of art after the genocide, I was like, well, I have to go to Rwanda now. I have to go spend time there and really see, what comes after war and if people can heal and overcome a tragic past.
These journeys are or these kind of trips that you're taking, are they all like really solo? And if so, is there like a reasoning behind that? Do you just like traveling solo, or is it more just some solo, some with like people, or
I think that, when you go to speak to people and you have something that you're passionate about, and you can't expect other people to be like, I feel the same exact way, so I want to go with you. So I love to travel by myself. I love the solitude because it allows me to process a lot more. And I also, I like to take the time to be there. So I'm not just going to go away for a week or 10 days. I want to actually spend time there to sit with it and to understand it. So yeah, most of it is solo travel, and it's just something that, like I said, you can't convince other people to go with you unless they're in the same kind of category.
so the Western Front in particular, had you been doing a lot of research beforehand into World War One, and that's what made you want to go, like pick that particular place, or
I've always been I always really like to learn about World War I, but it just always felt like, especially as an American, that you kind of gloss it over and go straight to World War II because my grandparents fought in World War II. So, that should be like the way I should study and everything. But I think World War I was just such a turning point in history of the world. And I keep on going back to it. So I was like, during COVID, everybody compared COVID to the Spanish flu. And, you sit there and you're like, and then you like want to know about what else happened around that time to make the comparison, because then everybody's like, oh, we're going to enter the roaring 20s. And it's like, well, the roaring 20s were also very violent and they were dangerous. And so it was where does the comparison, where does it fall short and where does it go? Like, you know what I mean?
I always found the Roaring Twenties kind of interesting. That whole thing of like people thinking like, that whole Great Gatsby imagery that everyone has for everything's all great and people are dancing and happy. But a lot of that decade is just people using way too much credit and then it just bounced.
Yeah, well, the credit really didn't exist until then, and then when they introduced it, you're talking about the devastation, the financial and social devastation of the war. There were so many upheavals and everything else like that. Like Germany was forced to make reparations for the Allied powers. So like yeah, like, you're right. The Roaring '20s were it wasn't even just the credit, it was what else was happening. There were so many revolutions. You have the Red Summer of 1919. You have all these things that, you could sit there and be like, I live close to the Gold Coast of Long Island, so you're like, you see these houses and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna just party like Jay Gatsby." But that wasn't what most people experienced. So it's interesting that people relate what they know about the Roaring '20s to that, as opposed to all of the wars, all of the revolutions, all of the societal upheavals that were taking place?
I think because we were talking about this before the interview started about the early 2000s. I think that whole nostalgia cycle is we kind of just pick and choose what we think is cool or kind of
Yeah.
like deem some things cooler than they used to be when at the time they were probably cool or they were probably things that we just didn't really think about as being that important back in the day.
No, you're right. I think that, like, time changes our ideas of time, especially as you get older, you have a better conception of what time is, even though it goes faster. But, like, yeah, like, going back to the early 2000s, like, right in the beginning of early 2000, you had Y2K, and then you had September 11th, and then you had, us invading Afghanistan and Iraq. So it wasn't this, like, Britney Spears. I mean, there was Britney Spears, of course, but it was so much more than that, and I think that, like, looking back on it, it's fun to think about it, like you just said, nostalgically, but it it was a tough time period too, because it's the world.
I honestly think that cycle's coming around like right now. Like I feel like 80s nostalgia kind of died out with like Stranger Things ending and all that, and we've kind of hit that cycle where we're hitting like the 90s, 2000s stuff. I've seen so many videos with people with fisheye lenses. I've seen a lot of people doing trying to bring back pop punk.
Okay.
Uh, the long sleeve shirt and then a short sleeve shirt on top of that.
No, no,
That's
they can't no, they can't do that. Please don't do that. Oh my god, I'm gonna bring back my wife beaters that I was wearing then, and I was out with my friend last night, and she's like, "You can't wear low-rise jeans anymore." And I looked at her and I'm like, "Says you?" Like, it's so funny because then I see, like, a girl that's 21 that I work with, and she's like, "Oh my god, I love your vintage jeans." I'm like, "What do you mean vintage?" I'm like, "I've just owned these for a very long time." I'm like, "They're not I didn't go out and buy them." Like, they're not vintage. They're my jeans. So, yeah, and, like, going back to, like, walking the Western Front, I think that a lot of people had the nostalgia for before World War One, like, they misconceptualized the way the world was before the war began. So I think we do that. I think we do that to, like, maybe, make ourselves more comfortable, or to think that maybe this time is bad, but there was a time that was better, you know?
it's
But
kind of
no,
like that whole back in my day mindset.
yeah, but long sleeve shirts with T-shirts over it, no, no, definitely, like, I think that, like, no, you've seen that out there?
Yes. I haven't seen
Oh
the
my
frosted tips
goodness.
though, so I think
Are we safe for now?
yeah, I think we're safe for now.
I don't know because the frosted I still have, like, memories of my friends doing that with their hair and just, like, being like, "Okay," like, and thinking that that would, like, I don't know, you kinda made fun of it, but it's also the same thing as dudes with their mustaches today. Like, you just look at it, you're like, "You know that doesn't look good, right?"
I mean, you never know. I'm kind of interested in seeing what people find interesting about our current decade that they're going to like kind of appropriate and bring over like 20 years from now or so. So,
Yeah, especially with, like, AI and everything else happening, like, you might wanna it might be just one of those things that, you look back and be like, "Oh my gosh, those were the good old days that we didn't have those things, that we didn't have, um" you know, like, the world is at our fingertips now, but, like, what happens when that might have control over us, or, that you're always hooked up to technology. So, yeah, it's a great way to look at it, like, why do we look at that and then, like, look back and think that everything was good and wonderful, you know?
the thing I wanted to ask you about traveling is, I guess, particularly towards the Western Front too, but that this could also apply to like any travel story. Have you ever like made any like interesting connections along the way?
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, like, one of the first times that I went out into the world, I met some, like, people that I've been friends with and close with for the rest of my life. And, some of them were fleeting, and then one of them, wound up becoming my husband for a brief period of time. So, yeah, and then there's other people that I just still talk to, whether, a quick message here and there or, a deeper, meaningful friendship. So it just depends on the situation and who you interact with.
What would you say like the highs and lows of like traveling are, and what's like your pitch to people to like try to travel more because I know like people my age, we don't. I don't really travel. I haven't really traveled all that much, mainly because I don't think I have the money for the most part. But I've seen people
Uh-huh.
slightly older than me like go on all these trips and vacations and stuff, and I think, how are you doing this? So yeah.
I would say, like, work really hard and save your money before you go, so that way you're in a financial position before you leave to be able to return to, and that way you're not, like, going away just for the sake of an Instagram post or to have a TikTok video or something like that. I would say, like, travel with attention. If you really don't go somewhere because everyone else is telling you to go there, go somewhere because that's where you want to go. That's where your heart is. And also take the time that you can take and don't follow what everybody else is doing. So yeah, like I think that money is definitely a major, major player in traveling, but also if it's something that's important to you, don't let it stop you. Don't let it prohibit you from doing those things. And maybe it could be a trip of a lifetime. Like, you don't have to travel like I have, where you go different places and you go there for an extended period of time. Like, you can go because it's on your bucket list. It's your dream of always going to a place and and seeing something, even if it's just Vegas or something.
To know what is your what would you say is like I don't know, top two, top three favorite like historical things to talk about? Because I know you like work with art history. Like, is there like specific like aspect that you're like really into?
Yeah, so like, it sounds so strange, but I really enjoy talking about war and learning about war. And, like, a couple of years ago, I started listening to the Real Dictators podcast. So I when people talk about totalitarianism stuff, like, that's where I get really not excited, because how do you get excited about that stuff? But that's what really, like, okay, let's go through this. And you just think like, "Oh my gosh," like, you learn about Joseph Stalin and you're like, "Wow, what a rugged, rugged man," you know? So I think it's the darker parts of history, even though I love, being positive, enthusiastic, and hopeful. It's like when you learn about the darker parts of history, you're like, "Oh, shoot." So it sounds kind of strange, but also in the same way, it's just like, I don't watch scary movies. I have never watched Stranger Things. I don't watch, thrillers or anything. So I think, like, learning about history is, like, where I get my fix, whereas, people might watch those things and be like, "Okay, I'm good. I don't need to know anything else."
Were you always kind of into history, or was it like something you got into high school? There was like a certain class or certain teacher that just kind of said something that kind of like sparked something, or
No, I feel like I was always into history because, even when I was a little kid, I had great teachers growing up. And I was also living history. I was, born in 1980. So, like, you want to talk about that reminiscing and everything with the 80s. We grew up at the tail end of the Cold War. So, we were always watching the news. We were always learning about what was happening in the world and everything. So it was kind of like that was instilled in me in a very young age. I'm glad to hear that, not that the 80s styles are no longer with us. And that, people aren't getting permed hair or, all those other things, but or even like boy band, like those kind of rock bands, like big hair bands. Yeah, I think that it was just something that it was always something that like, that pulled me in. If I learned more about history, then it made life made more sense.
where do you think you're gonna go for? You have any other like trips in mind for your next destination?
Oh my gosh, I have so many trips in my head. Like, it's just a matter of where this life takes me. I would love to go to the Eastern Front and go to more places in the Eastern Europe. And I would love, honestly, like, I know this is not the time to do it, but I really, really, really want to go to Russia. I really want to go see the Hermitage and summon an art historian. I want to go eat borscht, and, like, I just feel like there's so much history in Russia, and there's so much tumult that it's something I want to see desperately, and I think it's sad that I might never get to see it. But then I wanna go to South America and just, you know, have a good time.
In
Where would
terms
you
of
go?
Oh, me? I well, okay. Well, this is like a just like a first thing's like a bucket list. Like I think it's probably the easiest thing to do, but I want to go to Oregon. I want to go to
Okay.
Bend, Oregon, because they have the last Blockbuster located there.
Okay. Oh, wait, have you ever been to a Blockbuster?
Well, yeah, like I went before when I was like a kid. I went there when Hollywood Video, but I just it's been like 12 or so years since like they closed in all the ones by where I live and pretty
Has
much
it been
everywhere
the
else.
okay, so they
Yeah,
have the last Blockbuster there. That's I mean,
yeah.
that's a good like, that's a pilgrimage in itself to go see
Yeah.
the I mean, can you still rent videos? Like, are there still
I
VHS
think so, but
players?
it's more of like you can rent and buy stuff there, but I think it's more of just like going there just like to visit. I think it's more of like a kind of like the first McDonald's, how that you don't they don't really serve hamburgers there anymore.
Yeah.
It's more of just like a place just like going like a museum essentially.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, like, but yeah, I heard Bend was really, really cool, so that would be a good how far away are you from Bend?
I'm in California, Riverside, California.
Okay.
So I think actually, I have no idea. I have no idea how far a drive that is. But
It'd be a long drive.
my friends went there a couple of years ago, and I just couldn't go with them at the time. But they actually went there for me, so I'm hoping to go there myself in the next like maybe year or so if I get the
I hope you
opportunity.
get there. I really hope you get there because it's if that's something you dream about or something you think about, like, you might as well, right?
In terms of like writing the book, how was that process for you? Like,
Difficult.
was it a lot of like note taking, like while you were still on the journey, or was it kind of like reflecting back and like of what you had already done?
It was more reflection back, like, it was definitely I didn't take that many notes when I was walking because I wanted to, like, live in the experience, like, going back to what you were saying about all that nostalgia, like, for me, I just feel like during COVID, I was, looking for answers on my phone all day, every day, and obviously, we both know that that's not the place to find them, for generally speaking. So I think I just lived in the moment, like, every step, everything, I tried to take it all in and really be present in the landscape and then process it later. I mean, like, there's not a time that I can't close my eyes and remember, "Oh, on this day I did this," or "I saw this," or anything, like, I can go through, like, the steps of my journey and be like, "Okay, like, that's what Verdun felt like, that's what the mountains felt like, that's what eating this food tasted like." So, I'm very lucky to have that kind of memory in which I can, then transcribe it into a book.
Do you plan on writing any more in the future?
Oh, yeah, I have, like, a ton of books to write, like, I have a lot of things that I want, but I think I might move into historical fiction. So go still talk about World War One, still talk about, like, the time after World War One, but, like, I wanna do historical fiction for a little while and see where that goes because I feel like it's more creative and, gives me a little more freedom to play around with it instead of being like, "Okay, if I don't write this right, am I gonna get, in trouble? Or is a historian gonna be upset about it?" Do you like to read books?
Yeah, I've actually just gotten back into it. I
Cool.
finished this book called Nowhere Man about John Lennon, the last couple years of his life.
Okay.
It was an interesting read, I'll say that, because you think John Lennon's like this kind of Zen meditation kind of cool guy, did some heroin, member of the Beatles, but the last couple years of his life were very like sad to some degree. Like he gave up music. He's kind of just like living in his apartment, his large apartment, mind you. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's like a millionaire, but lives there with Yoko, his son. Yoko won't sleep with him anymore, to some degree. He eats a lot, or he binge eats. He tries to be a good father to his son, but he ends up spoiling him, and he's envious of other people, and he hates the paparazzi. It kind of like a sad story, but it has more of an uptick at the end. But of course, there's no really real uptick because he gets murdered. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
I didn't
yeah,
realize it was that dark for him in the last years of his life. That's really sad.
yeah. I mean, there is again, there's that uptick. He like kind of gets back into doing music. He seems like he's like on like more of an upward swing, but then he's murdered. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I
It's
just
sad. It's sad, like,
oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think
Yeah,
that's why I
you.
s was that?
Oh no, I was saying every time
I was gonna
I
say,
try to
I'm
say
like
I'm sorry, you go, but
no, I was
you
gonna say, I just think that's why I study history. It's like you have like, you want to learn about these personal lives, like whether it's John Lennon, who was, a very famous Beatle, or just some regular person trying to get by in the world. I think that that's what is so important about looking back and learning that stuff, because it makes it more interesting and makes you feel like, okay, like were there times in my life that I might have felt like John Lennon? Like would I have behaved that way if I was in the Beatles and then I wasn't, like, you just, you have, it almost like is an echo of your own life experiences and being like, okay, I want to be that way. I don't want to be that way. Like, I understand it, but I don't, it's personal histories and collective histories are, I think that they're one and the same.
like it too. I really like it because it makes him feel more human. I've never really liked the whole celebrity thing of like making them feel like they were like bigger and better than other people just because they could sing or dance or pretend to sing or pretend to dance and or just pretend to be other people. I just I want to know that these people are like me because when you put them on a pedestal like that, it just makes them seem almost inhuman. And when you like see their flaws, just makes them a bit more relatable, and it makes them feel like you can connect to them a bit more.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree with you. And that could be like you said, like it could be like a celebrity and that idea of what catapults people into fame and everything. And then it's like, are they human, or are they pretending to be, are they pretending to be something they're not? Or like it's like, I love the way you just put it. I think that that's the story of human nature, that's what people go through. And whether they become ultra famous or they just, fade into obscurity, it's just depends on what you choose.
That's kind of like what you're doing. You're kind of putting things in perspective. You're going to these places, you're seeing what things are like instead of just and you're actually like physically there as opposed to like most people that talk about certain things they've looked them up online, they haven't really touched grass and like seen these places in person and like built a connection to them.
Yeah, and I think that that's really what it comes down to, is that, like, you can hide behind your screen, you can think that you learned all these things, and it could be a across the board in anything that you really wanna, like, learn about, but unless you're really there and going through it, like, do you really know it, you know? Like, I didn't know half the thing I didn't know any of the things that just happened that you talked about with John Lennon. You just think that, like, "Okay, well, I have an idea that a man like John Lennon existed. I know the music that he sang. I know that he married Yoko Ono," but, like, you don't know the depth of what he experienced until you learn about it more. So it's really interesting.
I just had one last question for you, and it's what do you think of that whole we're doomed to repeat ourselves because we don't seem to learn from our history? And it because I think it's kind of scary, especially nowadays when we have access to so much information that we seem to be
Mhm.
repeating the same things over and over and over.
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. Like, you can sit there and be like, "Oh, those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it." It's like, well, if you only learn history on the superficial level and you don't learn anything more, of course you're gonna repeat it because you think you know something that you have absolutely no idea about. You think you understand something that you haven't begun to understood. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's we're gonna continue to repeat it because we think that we are aware of things that we have no awareness of. And that goes across the board in any period. If like, you focus on pop culture and all that other stuff, like, that goes that it can that can be applied to everything. It's not just like, oh, that deep history of the world at large. It could be anything. Like, it could be like, even like building friendships and having relationships and all that other stuff. Like, if you do not learn from what you've already experienced, you're going to keep on going through those same patterns. And so history is just those patterns on a bigger scale. Does that make sense?
Summed it up perfectly.
I think about this a lot. This is something I really spend my time with.
Well, it is part of your job, so.
Yes, it is true. It is very, very true.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap things up. I'd like to thank you, Brianna, for agreeing to be on this episode. What's the name of your book again? So we can
It's
promote
called,
it in case.
yes, thank you. It's called There Will Come Soft Rains, A Journey Along the Western Front.
Okay. Ooh, I like that title. I like that
Thanks. I
title.
stole it from a poem,
Oh, okay.
but it was a beautiful poem and it was written at the end of World War One. So I think it's fair.
Yeah, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
That works. All right. Please be sure to check out Brianna's book and check out more of her exploits. See if she goes anywhere else that may interest you guys. Take care and goodbye.